Hello. Hope everyone is having a safe and I guess warm week. I'm actually recording this on January the 17th, which was another snow day. So I hope some of you have gotten the day off and are enjoying it. Um, Probably when you're watching it, I think next week is supposed to be a little warmer. So hopefully things aren't quite as cold. I enjoy the cold a little bit. But with all that being said, I want to jump on into this week's stuff because there's a lot. Few things. One, I know way back in week one, now that we're coming into the third week, I mentioned, this is a graduate class. I'd like to look at some topical type issues. That's kind of how I viewed the class, maybe almost policy or idea driven. Uh, we're still going to go with that, and I'm going to do my best. There's so much when I'm planning for the weeks that we could talk about. And, with the 7 week class, I feel like sometimes I'm just info dumping. So I do apologize. I'm going to try to make sure that we're kind of focused a little bit this week. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right in. I do want to highlight real quick what this week entails. I'm going to pull the syllabus up. Um, I mentioned last week the Zen project. I'm going to keep week two open in case you need to go back and look at that breakdown of the Zen project. But it is also posted in week three, the template, the assignment, and everything. But if you need to go through, it's literally doing that template and finding the things on the link. And again, I'll send out typed out directions too if you need them. Discussion three is up. It's related to the flat world readings. And this week, I'll also be throwing up a few things related to supplements. I created a folder in Wakelet. I'll show you that here in a minute. If you're not familiar with Wakelet, it's just like a Google Drive, but it's a site. I like it. I think it's very simple to use. If you have any problems opening it, just email me. I will say sometimes Safari it's a little fickle with if you haven't updated your Safari. The only reason I know is as you can see, I'm actually filming this on Safari. So sometimes I use my Google Chrome. But if you have a Google account, you just create it and just go right in. It's a really nice teaching tool, but I digress. I like it for planning. And plus, I wanted to create something that when this class is over and the blackboard, when the Brightspace spot is closed, you still have access to the articles and such if you want. So, with that being said, you may have gotten some emails related to funding, and I think this goes into the investment theme this week that Flat World get talks about in chapters 5 and 6, and the prior chapters in 3 and 4. But as you can see here, here's some infographics. I like infographics. So again, you should already have these, but I'll post these up also in the Wakelet. But as you can see, nationally, we spend about $12,000 per student. We mentioned that last week. One thing I did want to highlight in case I didn't say it, I think I did, or if I said it very quickly, um, this is the spending. Uh, by the way, she talks about this in her work and in a video that I posted. But the Every Student That Succeeds Act, the ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. It's the act, the federal act that's supposed to help schools economically in terms of diverse students or disadvantaged students and increasing funding like in ELL and things like that. And as you can see with IDEA, the Individuals with Disability Act, things of that nature. Here is, in case you want to look at it, the chart of all the funding nationally per state, per student. As you can see, West Virginia, I know, listen, West Virginia we have our issues, good and bad. But as you can see here, we spend about 1.3 thousand per student federally, which actually isn't too bad. I think when you can do a comparison to other states, I mean, we're on par with California, Pennsylvania, a little more than New York. Now, some of that I know has to do with our population. Since 1950, we are the only state that has actually decreased in population. We had 2 million people in 1950, and now we don't. Uh, and I think the last few census, we've actually lost a little bit of people. The problem for us, especially a lot of people in this class, the anomaly is the Eastern Panhandle has exploded in that time. So where we're kind of growing, the rest of the state has struggled with some things. But I won't. You can definitely read this chart, and she talks a little bit about the spending through this program. But I wanted to go ahead and throw this up if you wanted to check it out. Um, but let me go ahead and jump into week three and just kind of highlight a few of the things that I wanted to note. Um, as you can see, here's the breakdown too, if you need it. And the Zen project, like I said, that was on last week's video at the very end. If you want to check it out, and I'll type out detailed instructions, and they are posted up here also. And the chart. Sorry, wanted to make sure I said that. Um, I'm going to go ahead and pull up my notes that I took from the readings from Flat World. I'm going to kind of blow through these because there's a few other things I want to show that just supplement some of this information, such as the infographics that I just did. But just in case, the big themes that she's talking about again is trying to pull up those low socioeconomic populations, and kind of using the funding and trying to do that. Now, there's a lot of different ways to do this, and this is something we need to kind of think about with diverse learning. I'm going to show you the culturally responsive chart, which I mentioned last week again, but please don't forget diverse teaching is a lot of different things. It's not just the curriculum. It's, having early childhood programs. It's teacher preparation programs. This is something that Shepherd, we're always trying to evolve and improve because trends change, issues change. I will be the first to admit I taught pre-pandemic and then I came to Shepherd right before the pandemic. This is my 5th year full time at Shepherd. Teaching pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, just listening to my students, it's a whole other, it's a different animal, so to speak. So, we got to invest in teacher preparation programs. I think it's down here. One big thing is mentoring. Having good mentoring programs. That's another thing to work on diversity. And when I'm talking about mentoring, it's in one of the articles, so I'll just kind of go ahead and say it. I mean, 80% of teachers in this country, I believe I have that number right, are white. So, do we need to have more mentoring, of people from different backgrounds? The answer to that, of course, is yes. Um, I got just to tell a quick story. I went to a conference 2 years ago. I think it was in 2022 now, and there was someone who was presenting, and they were talking about teaching in Hawaii, Puerto Rico, America, Samoa, and all. It was very interesting. And the person from Hawaii was saying they get tons of people who apply to teach in Hawaii because they go to Hawaii. They think it's great. It is great, beautiful. But Hawaii schools are not Hawaii beaches. And what they find is a lot of times what they found in their study was a lot of people who take especially administrative jobs don't last very long because some of the issues that native islanders have versus people who come from, I don't know, Kansas, I'm just throwing that out there, are totally different. So there's a hard way to click, so to speak, and forming that. And also the mentoringship because the issues are just different in terms of faculty and staff and such. So what I'm saying is you have to think about these things and diversify faculty. That's something we're going to talk about a little bit with the action plans, and how to diversify teacher populations. It's something we work on. We're trying to improve with our teacher preparation programs. It's something that comes up every time we have an opening that we need to diversify our programs and our faculty. Um, Diverse curriculums obviously falls into that, and of course, I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around a little bit because I wanted to show the other things and be respectful of time. Also, leadership. That's another one. We kind of talk about mentor programs and having quality teachers. You also need to invest in quality leadership. I'm sure most people in this class are in the classroom now, and it's the trickle down effect. And a lot of times, I can go in when I do observations, I can usually tell when I'm going into a school that has strong leadership or doesn't. And I don't mean that, that's not to knock any school, and I will not mention any school by name, but you can just tell by the way it flows during the course of the day and even the general vibe in the school. It definitely is telling. So, investing in quality leadership. And again, I think a lot of that comes back into preparation programs and mentoring. I did a accreditation review in Connecticut, and I was very impressed with like their how they prep their principals and how they do internships before they can actually be principals in a lot of their preparation programs for administrators and such. So not just throwing numbers at the problem, so to speak. Um, Anything else that I just wanted to make sure, that we go. Some of this is actually on the discussion board with these prompts, so I'm not going to go in there. And a few, she talks about in chapter 6, obviously funding schools adequately. Um, she is not a big proponent, and actually, this gets into the culturally responsive teaching. So I'll kind of mention this already, but eliminating examination systems and that kind of track students, and also diversifying assessments. Work on your having diverse national standards and curriculum. That's why I threw up the 1619 project. I know there's a lot of different opinions on that, but I think it does get to the conversation of do we need to diversify and kind of update our curriculum a little bit and to be more inclusive and talking about things. Again, I'm sorry, I'm a social studies teacher by trade. When I think about how we teach social studies, a lot of times, I've heard people say they've actually started to teach just to mix it up a little bit, teaching American history from the West. I know it looks like I'm coming east, but I'm actually coming west on my the opposite of my camera. Maybe I'll do it this way. There it is. We'll come west. I think that's right. Anyway, coming from California across and maybe trying to teach that way because there's a whole group of people out there, that it's a different way. And again, that's the Howard Zinn effect. When you're looking at ideas, he's definitely got more of a diversified curriculum. Um, One thing that I have, and I'll tell you what, I will go ahead and pull them up since I have them, so don't just go down the list. One thing I have on here, I did put the Center for Teaching Social Justice. If you're interested, I did put up the social justice standards. If you want to kind of peruse, there's no required reading, but I know sometimes, if you're sitting around and just looking for something to do, they have a set of standards that they've actually created for teachers to go through to see if they could do it. I know that's one more thing or one more cog in the wheel, but I think, it's something if you're just kind of sitting around one evening, if you want to check them out, you can. And as you can see, they kind of do them by anchors, and there's kind of the summary. The front page actually has some instead of if you don't want to read the whole document. So I do have those up if you want to check them out. And let me go, I'm just gonna roll that down there. But and of course goal oriented. And then there's some curriculum examples that she has too. All right, that was kind of just the flat world. Some other things that I noticed that I just wanted to kind of make note of this week to kind of supplement that material. One, you know, I guess it's getting a little. When I originally started teaching this class, the whole Washington Redskin name controversy was going on, and it kind of got, we were kind of talking about this in the class one time on the discussion board about whether it's appropriate. Like I know West Virginia, we still have a school that uses the team mascot name as Redskin, and whether it's appropriate or not. I kind of put some stuff, and I actually, if you're interested, this is, I don't know how many people are ever on ESPN.com or on ABC News or anything, but I don't know if their affiliation's still quite there. But there was something called 538. It was like a political site, and they kind of got into the whole concept of naming and schools that use the Native American names, and whether it's appropriate in the polling and things like that. If you're interested in that, I actually threw that up. There's the article. The article I think is from there. It is 2020. But as you can see, there's still a lot on here, and I guess the reason I make this note again, this goes into the flat world conversation and the being culturally responsible. Should we have these names? And this is where this all kind of goes into different things. I know this is really just about team names, but it can seem to be a big deal. You're representing this, you're wearing it. So if you're interested, check it out. As you can see, there's a lot. And some people would probably dispute some of these names and such. So I don't know. But, I will say this. I think someone on our board actually said they were a Cowboys fan. I love Washington. They've been my favorite team my whole life. And I have to admit, I was someone who felt like the name needed to go. I think it's time it kind of passed. If, I kind of got to the point where if it was just bothering a few people, even if it was one, is it really worth it? Because sports are supposed to be for enjoyment and things like that. It's like, that's my opinion. You may have a different one. And as you can see, there's still some Redskin names that are still going on. Anyway, threw that up there if you're interested. The other thing I wanted to show you that was on here, the culturally responsive teaching. Again, just kind of getting into the concept of what she's talking about with curriculum and flat world. Again, I put that chart up last week. I'll make sure it's under this week. I thought this article kind of just nailed it, and it's probably more from a higher ed perspective, but I thought the way it broke it down, and this is something even in higher ed, talking about teacher preparation programs, sometimes we don't embrace the very teaching concepts that we actually tell everyone to practice. So this one kind of not narrows culturally responsible teaching down to 5 key points. And I kind of thought they were good. So I'll run through them real quick just to kind of let you know what they are. But again, check it out if you want to do the article or read it and kind of supplement it. But the most obvious, and I think this is something I hope all teachers do, but know your students, know where they come from. know their backgrounds, just know who they are. I think that's very important. I always tell my teacher candidates that's probably the number one thing that'll help you in the classroom more than anything. Students know that you care, that you're interested in them. It just helps with discipline. It helps with the content delivery. It helps with so much. Again, it's a little bit of apples and oranges, but I have a lot of advisees, and I try to at least know a thing or two about each one, whether it's if they do a sport, where they work, what high school they came from, where they're from, something. So you have that conversational piece. But again, and this gets into it a little more in a talk. You can see I can personal interest and things like that. This one gets into personal biases, and I think this is always just being a reflective teacher. We talk about this at Shepherd Tarps, and I think you do have to kind of look back and see, is there anything where you're a little stubborn on, or you won't kind of give. And it's a hard. I think in some ways this is a hard one to um, um, to look at. I think anything reflective is sometimes tricky, but that's a big one. That's a culturally responsive person. I'll give an example. I was teaching, actually, it was a high school class, but it was actually at a community college. And one of the students actually asked me, and they were like, actually, I was at the time I was Mr. Allen. They said, Mr. Allen, like the class, and they said, but when are we going to talk about Africa? And I said, well, we did, and I kind of cited a couple of examples, and they were like, no, 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 like the history, like the real background of Africa. Like I'm not talking like Egypt, South Africa, and then maybe a little bit on the West Coast. They were talking about, the continent. And I thought about it and I was like, you know what? I don't have a whole lot in there. Like everything I had was kind of from a European point of view. So I needed to diversify my curriculum. It was just a fact. And I appreciated that. And it's sometimes it is hard. It won't you get caught. I don't when you get observed or course evaluations, if you're in higher ed, I know we have a few people. They're hard sometimes to read, but if you can really look at them through, I always set mine to the side and give myself a day or two and then look at them. It can help, and it kind of can help with this, your bias or maybe some things that you need to be reflective on. So, culturally responsive teacher, know your students, personal bias, um, transfer your pedagogy and curriculum. Again, I mentioned that, but that's kind of looking at your curriculum, and then what I just talked about. Is it diverse? Is it meeting a lot of different areas? Another example. Again, sorry, social studies teacher, but I remember I never had a whole lot of women's history in my curriculum, and it was something as even when I was teaching middle school, I needed to improve on, and I tried really to make a conscientious effort of that, especially after my first couple years. I think that it was a gap that I knew I needed to do. Um, and be up to date, everyone taking this class, probably doing a lot of other more methodology based classes, trying to update, keep current on trends. So important. Assessments, she mentions this in flat world, but make sure you're not just doing testing. I know she's probably talking a lot about standardized testing and measuring students that way, but even in your classroom, it goes without saying, portfolios, more chunky type formative assessment, kind of knowing your class. I like that low stakes quizzes. I see quick writes, things like that. Again, sorry, I'm in higher ed, so I kind of catch this. I think that's something again that we struggle with, and I see it in high schools a lot. I'm in more high schools and middle schools than anything else. Um, you don't have to just test on everything and make that everything, like have 4 grades and that's your grade for the quarter or the semester or anything like that. You can do more chunky type stuff. We mentioned respect culture, and if I was a little quick with it, I think the Native American aspect, the article that's up kind of gets into that, maybe thinking a little bit more about that. And of course, being have a school community is always big, involve family, community, things like that. I think that goes without saying. And sometimes it's tricky. Sometimes it's hard when you're busy, but just trying to build those relationships. I always tell people, even if you can just go to a game, and I'm sure a lot of you do this, but I remember going to a lot of middle school basketball games, and it really helped me in the long run when I did have issues with students because I already had a relationship with the parent, or the parent knew that I wasn't maybe out to get certain students or anything like that. So these are kind of culturally responsive. I know the chart is also up. I just like this article because it kind of summarized it a little bit. And that kind of is the nuts and boltsy stuff that's up this week. Let me make sure I didn't overlook anything in that portfolio that I wanted you to look at. I think that was it. I'm going to show those infographics. And as always, I feel like I'm buzzing through stuff a little bit, but I also say I try to keep it under 30 minutes. I think I originally said 20. Um, Make sure you're reading Flat World. There's good stuff on there. The discussion post is up and it gets into the Every Student Succeeds Act, the one that's supposed to kind of level the playing field. She talks a little bit about that in her readings. I also have a video up with her in an interview talking about it. And again, this kind of gets into the income distribution and in inequality and things like that. I did put a video up of Howard Zinn also. The Zinn assignment is also due at the end of the following week. I'm trying to get my weeks in order here. That would be on the 29th. Um, excuse me. Um, Trying to think anything else. Again, I'll leave week 2 open if you want to check out the Zen thing, but the project is there, and just to kind of pull it up in quick time here. Um, that's the one where you're going to look at the theme, write it down, resource, you're going to put it there, and just how you might incorporate it in your content or lesson, or why you think it's interesting. If you really can't find anything, just put why you think is a good one. It's just kind of get you looking at diverse curriculum is basically what I'm trying to do, what we're talking about with flat world education and just in general in the culturally responsive teaching. That's the goal. And with that being said, I will tell you this. I'm going to go back. I'll send out an email and I might open this week a little early. So I'll go ahead and say this. I'm actually in Florida on Friday and Saturday for a conference. Presenting something, but I have access to my email and such. So I will definitely make sure to check it. And one thing I did want to highlight, I'm going to send this out. It's not due until the 12th, but I'm going to go ahead and probably try to put a little bit of information out on the action plan. Um, or you can at least start thinking about it. I just wanted to plant this in your brains. This is the big assignment this year. It's probably the biggest writing assignment. It's kind of just thinking about your ideal world and trying to meet a lot of the concepts that were just discussed today in terms of creating an inclusive and welcoming environment. Families welcome, diverse teachers. There's a question on there: how would you recruit a more diverse faculty? Um, and staff and students. How would you try to increase overall achievement and the success in your school? Things like that. Um, Again, there's questions that will prompt you. Actually, I do have it up. I think you should be able to open it. Let me make sure that it is there. I think I have it due on the 18th, so that's fine. I'll confirm to that. I'll go check here. I think I have the template up. Yep. If you need it, it's all right here. You can check it out, and it kind of tells you what it is. But basically, what I'm asking you to do is address each one of those goals, and you can just write it up. Creating a welcome. How would you do that? Attract and maintain and retain a greater number of students. How would you do that? Again, you can do it each one. That's fine. I'm just planting the seed. It's not anything that's due this week or anything like that, but it's a bigger writing assignment. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew it's there. Um, the big thing this week is the discussion board and the Zen project. So, with that being said, I hope everyone is staying warm. I know that was, again, a quick crash course. We're asynchronous. I just try to do these because I hope that they help a little bit. And with that being said, I'm going to cough and get a drink of water real quick. I keep coughing and not drinking. Again, I hope everyone's having a good week. And if you do need anything, please feel free to stop by my office, 101C, or email me, and I'll be more than glad to communicate with you. So stay warm. I will talk to everyone later.